In this video, I'm walking you through how I made this climbing wall and what it was like to set my first bouldering problems. I'm John McIntyre. If you've been curious about building a DIY climbing wall at home, or just like seeing how things are made, I hope this video helps. The goal of this project was to make climbing more accessible for myself. My nearest bouldering gym is about a 40-minute drive away, which makes it hard to go to regularly. My hope is that having a wall at home will allow me to improve between the few times per month I can make it to a proper climbing gym. Building a climbing wall is actually simpler than you might think. It's just a few-hour build requiring some simple woodworking tools. The build is broken down into 3 main sections, starting with the face of the wall. For this, I used a 4x8 sheet of 1/2-inch white oak plywood. It's more durable than standard plywood and gives a nicer look to the final product. I trimmed a few inches off the top of my plywood with my circular saw to fit the height constraints of my balcony's ceiling. After setting that plywood off to the side, we can start building the frame that'll keep the wall sturdy and rigid. Here we use Douglas Fir 2x4s, cutting to form a perimeter that will go around the plywood. To attach the 2x4s together, I first tack them with nails to get them aligned and secure them with screws afterwards. A quick tip for beginner woodworkers out there, always pre-drill your screw holes before driving the screw in to avoid splitting the wood. This is particularly easy to do with softer or less expensive wood, and a mistake that I've made many times before. Once the frame is complete, I laid it on the floor and put the wall face on top of it, tacking it in place with my cordless brad nailer, pre-drilling the holes, and securing it with screws afterwards. And to add a little bit of extra support, I installed 2 horizontal beams across the middle of the frame. With that, we can move on to the last part of this build. I drilled a grid of holes across the board, each spaced about 4 inches apart. This was by far the most tedious part of the build, but will give us plenty of options for the placement of our climbing holds. Now we get out our orbital sander, slowly working from an 80 grit to a 220 grit, knocking down any hard edges and leaving a nice finish to the wall. And with that, the wall is ready to hang. I repurposed the mounting system from my existing pull-up bar that uses eye hooks and carabiners to attach to my ceiling joist. Each of these eye hooks is rated for about 800 pounds, so we don't need to worry about this thing falling down anytime soon. One of the things I was a bit disappointed with was how much blowout I got when drilling the holes for the climbing holds. Blowout happens when layers of plywood chip or splinter at the top or bottom of the plywood sheet. I believe this was because I used an older, somewhat dull drill bit that didn't cut as cleanly as it should have. As well, after using this wall a few times, I realized the original ceiling mount was difficult to attach and didn't offer any adjustability in the angle of the wall. I ended up switching to a different system that uses climbing rope and allows me to adjust the angle between 27 and 31 degrees. And with that out of the way, let's move on to the climbing experience of this wall. I have to start off by saying I have an entirely new appreciation for the root setters at my climbing gym. It's definitely a skill and an art to be able to set a good problem. One thing you've probably already noticed is that I've added these volumes around the board. This really helped with adding interest and variability to the angle of my holds. They're simple to make, and I'd highly suggest adding them to your wall for anyone following along at home. I'll link the video that taught me how to make these in the description of this video. Because of the wall size, I can only set about half a typical boulder root in length, just a couple of moves per problem. What I found helped most with my root setting is to focus on the start position and trying to force a particular action out of that start position. Here's one of my favorite problems that I set in red, starting off with a difficult match pinch, going out to a crimpy right hand and bumping to a slightly better hold. Moving the feet towards the center of the board, before going with a high left hand. One more adjustment of the feet, to a big move out top right that's rather satisfying to land. My best guess is that this is around a V4 or V5 in difficulty. A quick note on the holds and crash pad I used, as this is where you'll be spending most of your budget if you're making this wall yourself. I invested in a black diamond portable crash pad in the color Rust Orange. Pads like this are generally around $200. It's worked great for the setup and could be useful if I ever find myself at an outdoor climbing session. For holds, you're looking at about $5 to $10 per hold. I mixed it up with this Metolius 30 pack, as well as some handmade holds from Etsy and wooden holds from 2 Stones. And although I love this wall and I've been using it about once a week for the past few months, there's one issue I can't get past with it. That being how much space it takes up and how difficult it is to put away. It's creating a barrier to enjoying this outdoor bar stool area and makes it more difficult to work out on days that I don't climb. Because of that, I'll be working on a version 2 of this wall that's a bit more modular. So get subscribed for that, and thanks for watching.